The inspector responds coolly with, "I don't see much of him," again emphasising through his cool tone that he is in control, unaffected by Burling's attempt to throw his weight around. Burling again attempts to intimidate the inspector through the warning, "Perhaps I ought to warn you that he's an old friend of mine, and that I see him fairly frequently. We play golf together, sometimes up at the West Brumley." Here again he is attempting to use his money and status. Note the harsh tone created through "fairly frequently," which emphasises the fact that this is a veiled threat, a tactic to intimidate. Also note the use of golf. Here we can see that this emphasises his status, his wealth. The inspector responds, according to the stage directions, dryly with, "I don't play golf." Here we can see the deadpan humour. Also note the class divide. We can see also that he refuses to let Burling frighten him, unperturbed by his best efforts to intimidate. Burling responds rather condescendingly with, "I didn't suppose you did." Eric bursting out, according to the stage directions, "Well, I think it's a damn shame." Here we can see that Eric is quite a volatile character through the stage direction bursting out, foreshadowing his volatile behaviour later on. Again, humour is used through the response, "No, I've never wanted to play." Eric responds with, "No, I mean about this girl, Eva Smith. Why shouldn't they try for higher wages? We try for the highest possible prices, and I don't see why she should have been sacked just because she'd a bit more spirit than the others. You said yourself she was a good worker. I'd have let her stay." Here we can see yet again that Eric is sympathetic to the working classes. Note Burling's response, rather angrily, "Unless you brighten your ideas, you'll never be in a position to let anybody stay or tell anybody to go. It's about time you learned to face a few responsibilities. That's something this public school and varsity life you've had doesn't seem to teach you." Note how he is mean when he doesn't get his own way. Eric is considered immature by his family. Note the bitterness through the alliteration, "face a few responsibilities." Also note the irony here though, as Burling refuses to accept his own responsibility, but is hypocritically telling Eric to face his. We can also see through the comment on public school and varsity life that Eric is rather spoilt. Eric responds sulkily, "Well, we don't need to tell the inspector all about that, do we?" emphasising the fact that in many ways he is incredibly childish. Burling responds with, "I don't see we need to tell the inspector anything more. In fact, there's nothing I can tell him. I told the girl to clear out, and she went. That's the last I heard of her. Have you any idea of what happened to her after that? Get into trouble? Go onto the streets?" Note how important it is to Burling that he absolves himself of any guilt. The onslaught of questions deflects the fact that he had any involvement whatsoever. The inspector responds rather slowly, "No, she didn't exactly go on the streets." Here we can see the euphemism for the fact that she has possibly become a prostitute being thrown around here. Also note the timing of the entrance, however, as Sheila has just entered at this exact moment. "What's this about streets?" Then she notices the inspector. "Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Mummy sent me in to ask why you didn't come along to the drawing room." Here we can see that Mr. Burling doesn't have very many high expectations of the working classes. Also note the immature comment that Sheila makes about Mummy. This emphasises her childish manner. Note the confidence in Burling's tone when he says, "We shall be along in a minute now, just finishing." He tries to take control of the situation, but the inspector responds in a matter-of-fact manner, "I'm afraid not." Burling, rather abruptly, according to the stage directions, "There's nothing else, you know, I've just told you that." Here we can see he tries to cut the inspector off and seize control. Sheila is perceived as a rather curious character because she asks, "What's all this about?" Burling is incredibly dismissive of her, emphasising the gender gap. "Nothing to do with you, Sheila. Run along." Here we can see he is patronising and treats her like a child. The inspector responds with, "No, wait a minute, Miss Burling." Through this comment, the audience can predict that Sheila is involved somehow too.